What's up, broadcasters? Welcome back to another exciting episode of Branding Banter, your promotional podcast where you can get all the nerdy news you need to know about. My name is Jeff Franklin, National Accounts Manager with Headwear USA.
I'm Meg Erber, Director of Sales at Performa.
Hi, I'm Sarah Goshgarian Unruh, National Sales Manager at Stalls.
And we're joined by a very special guest today, Jessica Gibbons Rauch with PPAI.
Yeah, I realized I didn't add that to my little banner. So PPAI.
All good. Meg, good morning, sunshine.
Good morning. I'm trying to do whatever I can. If I sit back here, can you still hear me?
Barely. All right, awesome. So look, we're going to talk today about LDC and ELC. Yeah, that one. Look, all the acronyms, we've just added more to the whole.
We're adding to the list.
And
right?
They're changing. So, you know, what was formerly LDW, and, you know, in my heart will always be LDW. We want to talk about it. It just happened. Jessica, you are fresh off of it. And Sarah, you're also
last night. So very fresh in the mind.
And Sarah, you're both wearing your LDC shirts, which is cool.
Oh, that's so cute. Great job, whoever did those.
Shout out to John Norris for printing them from HIT. He got them through at the last minute for us and did a great job. He was a rising star with me back 10 years ago. Loved the event, was so excited about it, wanted to contribute. So fantastic.
Nice. Oh, there's a nice little sleeve imprint there too. Cool.
Fantastic. If we're going to do merch, we're going to do it right.
Yeah, I have to say, and it's got this kangaroo pocket on it. Like, it's really a nice style, just FYI.
But it's true. So like,
what brand is that?
Yeah, and with no hood. It's
company.
Those are nice. Those
and it's like really heavenly soft inside.
Yeah.
So it's basically a hoodie without the hood, which is awesome.
Yeah. It's a hoodie without the hood.
How often are we actually using the hoods on a hoodie anyways?
I mean,
and this is more appealing to the Gen Z group. That's is what they are liking. And since we were targeting the emerging leaders for that emerging leaders track, we wanted to make sure we had merch that spoke to them. But then also our regionals, Sarah, like they were all lining up to get their shirts too.
Oh, yeah.
So JGR, since you mentioned emerging leaders, is this like Spark 2.0? Is this what we're doing?
I don't think it's Spark 2.0 as much as it is services the same audience. So you and I, we met at Spark. I think you stood on a bus and tour guided us in Nashville or something like that. And it was a great event. And I loved being able to be a part of that. But what we're looking at now is something that we can really offer to young professionals who are on a leadership path, in a leadership role, have leadership potential as a way to educate them and give them the resources that they need to be successful. So a little more of an educational push. As you know, I'm pretty much an educational nerd. I'm all about professional development and how do we get people actionable skills that they can take back to their jobs and improve on. As well as because why we kind of connected this with the regionals, because this could be its own thing. But because the regionals offer so many resources. And one of the things that's so rampant is if you don't know the regionals there, you don't know the regionals there. Even we had, Hallie, who's with Sagny. I think she's put on Promo East. So she's legacy and she knows how the regionals are. She's very active, did a wonderful job. Absolutely adore her. She was at ELC. But then we have Jade Kreider, who's Kirby Hassman's daughter, also legacy, didn't know that regionals were an option. So just making that assumption that, okay, these are people who are up and coming. Of course they know what a regional is. I didn't know what a regional was when I started. I actually ran for a board on a dare. I didn't know who they were or what they did. And then I got it and I showed up and Bill Petrie was in my group at PPA Chicago. And he's like, let me explain to you what the heck you're doing here. But that's a very common problem. And new people who are coming to into the industry, we want them to stay. We want it to be Hotel California. We want them to be legacy lifetime people. And if we're not providing the resources that they need, then they're not going to get that. And within this actual track, we also kind of created a cohort. So now they're going to have people that they can rely on to grow and kind of connect with each other. They even have accountability partners now. So we paired them up so they have somebody that they can reach out to and say, hey, these are my goals and this is where I'm at and I'm trying to figure it out. So kind of that lateral mentor rather than just somebody who's more seasoned of a professional.
I really love this, Jessica. We have talked about this so much over the last 5 years. It's like, how did you get your start in the industry, right? And I would say 99%, because there was that random one. So I would probably be 99.5%. I think it was like one or two people over the course of 5 years said something different. But it was either they were born into it, or they found it by mistake. You know, so I love that we're educating this younger generation about our industry. Are there any other plans to do any more education for outside of the industry? Because I know that's been a hot topic that we've discussed in depth as well, but there's not a lot of that happening. So,
right. And this is kind of the next step for that. I always have to remind myself I've only been with PPAI for a year and I haven't solved all the 8 million problems that I'm going to solve. But it's definitely something that we want to look at. How do we get those, the case studies and the white papers within the university so that they have it as reference material? And how do we approach, because if you go and you talk to students, they don't know what merch is until you explain it to them. I didn't know what it was. Like, it's a $26 billion industry nobody's ever heard of until you're in it. And then it's amazing. But also looking at like high schools too, trade schools, like how do we get them to understand that there's a place for them in here? And one of the things we did with the emerging leader track is we actually had a panel on create your own journey, where we had 3 people who started in one role and ended somewhere completely different. And they're also, we're not traditional roles within the industry. We think sales, we think ownership, we think marketing, but we don't think about finance. I mean, if you're really into finance, you have a home here. HR, there's no reason you can't. Ops, I mean, those factories are huge and they've got to figure out where to put all those SKUs. Like, I can't do that. That's not where my brain shines. But there are people that maybe that's where they want to end up. I started in sales. I haven't sold a product in a long time. I'm okay with that. I like where I'm at now. But people need to have those journeys that they want within the industry. And we want to bring them in, have them find their path, and then hopefully keep them.
So Jessica, I signed up for PPAI Expo in January, and I was disappointed to not see some type of emerging leaders event at PPAI.
There will be.
There will be.
For 2025, what year are we in? I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is
24. So it's for 25.
For 25, there will be. It's just not up there yet.
Okay.
Oh, all right. So I'm going to have to go back and then re-add myself. Is that what's happening?
Well, I mean, do you hit the qualifications still? Are you really emerging leader?
I'm about to turn 39. Okay, I've still got another year and like 10 days.
It's not always about age, though. You're in a very high-end leadership role, but we would love to see you come in as a mentor, which is what I call myself, since I am 21 times 2, so I'm no longer in the technical demographic. But that doesn't mean that we don't, especially as past rising stars, past people who were in this spot. Like, there's no reason we shouldn't be connecting with these people.
Absolutely.
But yeah,
Jessica, I would love to be a part of that. If
I will mentor Michael Bartlett at Headwear.
There you go.
He did participate, and he participated. So I know some of the things that we did in that track, we went with some of those more traditional things that, you know, as you've been a seasoned professional, like, oh gosh, I don't want to do a team building exercise where we have to build a tall tower, you know, that's been done. But gosh darn it, did they have fun. We were apparently very loud and created some FOMO with the regionals who did not get to build a tower out of a bunch of random things that Jill found at Michael's. So
Nice.
I had no idea Play-Doh could be used to connect things. It was... we learn something new every day. But then what was great, we would throw like little curveballs out to them, like, hey, you know, we're going to take away a box, we're going to do this. And then we said at the last one was, you have to take one person from your team and send them to another team. And they all were like, oh, and I'm like, that's exactly what I wanted you to feel. I wanted you to like each other.
Oh, good. Well, Sarah, you went. This was your first time presenting there?
Me? So I didn't present. So I am on the regional side, right? So I went for the LDC track of everything, for which would have been LDW before. So because I'm incoming president for PPAS. So this was my second time to attend, and I loved having the emerging leaders there and the rising stars. From a regional perspective, like, we are always looking for the next committee, the next board member, everything else. So it helped connect the two, because to Jessica's point, what JJ was saying before is that they don't know. Some of them didn't know that like the regionals exist, or like who is on those boards, or how do they get involved. So it was nice to be able to help connect the dots in a setting in which, you know, at the end of the day, I think one of the questions during our roundtables had talked about the mission statement. And really, from a regional perspective, we all have the same mission, right? We're all trying in order to help educate our the promotional products world, right? And everybody that we serve as to only how we can get better together. And so this really, I think, helped connect all of those pieces together of the puzzle.
So I definitely missed this, and I apologize. So LDC and ELC are at the same time together?
Yes.
So LDC is the conference, and then there's
Okay.
emerging leader track. So
Okay.
originally, I think the pre-me, there was an idea to do a separate conference, but we really wanted to test out some curriculum. So
This is
because we
cool.
also brought in some keynotes, we're investing in our regionals. Kelly Merbler was our first keynote. That was something that both sides could benefit from. So why not share that resource and have them both have that experience together? And I really feel like this is a conference that we could continue to expand on. I had some of the emerging leaders were asking me, okay, so what's the intermediate track? So what am I going to do next time I come? I'm like, oh, that's cool. I didn't think of that. Like, let's explore that idea. Let's figure this out. Like maybe there's mid-level management tracks, or people who are we have so many people who are inheriting businesses that might not know how to run a business. How do we teach them? There's so much potential. I want to do all the things eventually. Maybe not when I have the product responsibility summit first, and then promotions East, and then LDW.
And we don't know what the date is yet, so I'll let you know if you can fit it in there, but we'll work around you guys. So
I love it.
So with LDC, I know LDW over the last year or two has sort of faced some pretty rough critiques. So how did it change this year? I mean, obviously I know that it's improved. So what did we do different this year that really maybe hasn't been done in the last couple of years? I mean, how are we how is PPAI starting to invigorate that relationship with the regional community that seems to have been lost over the last couple of years?
For sure. A lot of it was the investment in the event itself. I remember going to that same location back in 2010, I think is when I first did it. And it was that same place all the time, kind of as fun as it was to, fake propose to people under the arch, Meg. It was nice to have a new location, and it was a brand new location. And it was beautiful, and changing up not only what we were offering, but the physical space we were in was more elevated. We had backdrops just like we would have had at Expo. We had a conference room just like we would have at Expo. Plus we added in some new morning activities, which we haven't offered before. I will say that Sarah did a fantastic job at boxing. She had wonderful form, was kicking butt.
Like, yeah, you are an amazing teacher.
I definitely regretted when Lindsay's like, do you really want to teach boxing? I'm like, oh yeah, it'll be great. And that morning I was like, oh my God, it's 5 a.m. after karaoke. Yeah, we still had karaoke, even though it was karaoke and other things. I had a wonderful time just kind of like hanging out with people, playing bags. But
cornhole,
aside from the what?
Cornhole, you mean?
Bags. Chicago. But besides just the aesthetics of it, the space, the being a better location, being more facilitated. I know Stephen Lazarus even walked in. He's like, I feel like I'm at an expo because this has been elevated. But then also the content as well, trying to focus more on the professional development of it, where we still had boards, process, and procedures. We still need to talk about those kinds of things, but also how do we just make better leaders? How do we have them interact better? How do we give them the resources they need? And then we also did my very favorite version of roundtables, which is where musical chairs, you throw, everybody go in different directions, because I love the regionals and I would do this. They all sit together and they're like their little unit, which is great. But you want to meet other people. You need to learn from other regionals, and we want them to keep having those conversations going forward. So not to say that it's all me, because, this is my first time planning it, but some of it wasn't.
How many roundtables did you guys do, and how much time did you give them to switch?
So we actually did 2 different sets in the main room, and then we did 1 set just with the emerging leaders. With the emerging leaders specifically, they were mentor roundtables. So each table had a subject matter expert. So we had the Bill Petrie for marketing, Carrie Cowden for entrepreneurship. We had John Wooster for education and HR. He's from Halo. Love him. He came in as one of our mentors. So they could actually sit and ask questions. And if they weren't sure what to ask, we had various questions they could pull off the table, just for whatever they wanted to, and read it, so that they could keep those conversations going. We were forcing them to go through each of these mentors to have this conversation. We gave each one about 7 minutes each table, which was not enough time, but that wasn't the point. The point was to get that connection, get a couple questions in, and then continue the conversation later. It isn't just about going to these events and then you drop off the face of the world. Like, you have to keep those contacts going. On the main room, I believe we gave 10 minutes to each question for 5 questions. And then we try to get them to turn really fast. Like we're going like 30 seconds, 1 minute. Drop your stuff. Don't worry about it. Just mix it up.
Yeah.
I did do the math wrong at the end of the day. So when I did the all together with the emerging leaders and the regionals, I ran out of time for 2 of my questions.
It always happens on roundtables. That's why I wanted to see how it went up. I'm like, how did you do it? Because I'm like,
I know, and Jill Began, who is phenomenal at keeping time, and she's watching the timer in the back. I'm like, why don't you just play me off? When we run out of time, just turn the music back on, and I'm gonna leave because I can't keep track. This is why we work so well together. She answers all those things I'm not great at. So
yeah. That's really cool.
So one of the things that I know, for me personally, when I first came on to the board at CPPA, I didn't realize what my role really was on the board until I went to LDW the first time, now LDC. And so, it was really important just to have that collaboration and to see all the other regionals and to be able to talk to the other regionals and really have that sort of communication back and forth. And the education sessions were always incredible. There was always good panels. And then you guys the PPAI used to always bring in really incredible keynote speakers as well. So really cool to see that that's starting to come back. So kudos to you for bringing it back. And one thing that I will say, and then coming again another time as the incoming president, having that one-on-one time with the executive director to be able to really communicate and figure out how we're going to work together in the upcoming year was really important. So I don't know if that's something that happened this year, if that's one of the courses that took place, but if not, that's something I would recommend. And then lastly, one thing that I think that a lot of the regionals are facing or could use help with, since everybody seems to really be intent on still offering end user formats, is how to really get more buy-in from the larger distributors rather than having the larger distributors doing their own end user shows. Because I think as a supplier, we are just stretched way too thin, and it's going to come to a point where people aren't going to be able to do all of the shows. So if we could get buy-in from the larger distributors to work with the regionals, and I think that has to be from the regional. Like the regionals have to reach out to those distributors and pitch something. So that might be something that I would recommend as far as curriculum moving forward as well.
Yeah, there was a lot of idea sharing, which is one of the things that I love, is because you don't necessarily know, right, from the outsider when you go to Expo of like, who are those other people that are involved in the board? So I like being able to have those people in one room. It gives you more resources to be able to say like, hey, we're thinking about this idea or whatever. What have you guys done before? Where I may not have ever met that person before, whoever it is. And so now I'm creating a new connection, which is fantastic. But that was one of the things that did come up. And that was a lot of talking about of doing more from a collaboration standpoint as opposed to like these siloed approaches that tend to exist right now. So it's like, how do we break down some of these walls and just make it easier from a supplier standpoint as well? So, but then also respect and honor. We know that there's various buying groups and everything that all have different agendas. So, we want to make sure we respect everybody and what they're trying to do in their initiatives. However, how do we collaborate together to help for the better cause of all of the distributors? So,
I love that.
We had a session with the EDs specifically afterwards. We had about 4 hours with them. And they talked a lot about how they can work together to cover more ground, to offer more things to multiple suppliers or distributors so that they're able to collaborate. And I think that's really important too, because those are the people that don't change from board to board. They're very consistent. So having them have kind of a plan, like how are they going to help with this, I think is really important. And they had some brilliant ideas. I'm excited to see how it goes. I think that they have a lot of really great things, and shout out to those EDs. It is not an easy job. And I was glad we were able to take them to dinner, show them some love. They really deserve a lot for all the work that they do.
Oh, I don't
know what HPPA would do without Cassandra. So shout out to Cassandra. Love her.
I know, Jeff, you want to go next year, don't you? You already do. You want to go.
Me?
Yeah.
I mean, I've been doing a number of them in the past. If I'm on a board and it makes sense to go, then maybe we'll see. That's always a trick though, because my wife's an ED, and for us to both travel down there,
Did you
then
have
we've got to
fun?
take care of the kids and figure that all out. And it's during the school year, so they can't really
Bring them
miss.
with you.
That's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we'll watch them.
So, Jessica, any like key takeaways? Well, before we get into that, I will say one comment. I do like the idea that you had the emerging leaders come in that really don't have any idea what the regional community is all about, some of them, because I think that's another thing that regionals are struggling with, is that as our industry transitions to a much younger demographic, a lot of those people aren't necessarily drinking the Kool-Aid, if you will, and it's because they don't know about it. They don't know, how to get involved, or that these really cool events are happening in their backyard. So kudos to you guys for doing that. Hopefully that'll continue, at least to some extent. So what key takeaways did you have from the event that we could sort of share with the audience? Anything in particular before we wrap things up?
I think one of the key ones is that it's okay for us to evolve the way that we're presenting our professional development education. We did test out some new formats of things that we just haven't done in a long time, or as far as I know, have done it all. And it resonated really well. Being able to shift learning styles for people it's so crucial. We don't want to just sit through lectures and be told what to do. We want to be able to have those interactions. And that was very purposeful with this conference. I also think that we want to have a place for anyone to learn. So if you have an idea of something that you need to know, please be reaching out to us, and we'll find something that we can have for you, whether it's an in-person event or it's online education. We added a few more people to our adjunct professor pool, so we'll be having some more content there too. But the conferences that you thought of maybe 5 years, 10 years ago, they've all evolved. They're all different. So give us a chance, check it out, see what's right for you. And if you're not sure what's right, ask somebody who's been there and kind of see what their thoughts are. But I'm excited. There's so many conferences. I've now done the entire rotation. I've been to all of them this year. And not to say which one's my favorite one, but this one might have been, because it was definitely a labor of love. So
Love it.
Well, I'm sure your little one is so glad to have you home. I know Addie this morning actually said, "Oh yeah, my best friend Maddie." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Like, one slept over. I'm like, "You've had 2 sleepovers." Oh, and me. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, she brought me the mug that Miss Meg gave me, so that I make sure that I can.
Love it. But yeah, I'm so glad. I'm sure that they are so glad to have you home. I know you've been on the road.
Yes,
So.
and luckily the conferences will be a little bit more spaced out next year, so look for new dates. I know that we had enough people that had gone to both of them that you need a little rest in between.
Yeah.
I don't know how you road warriors do it. It's too much.
It's a lot.
And so, Sarah, as an attendee, before we wrap up, anything from you as far as like key takeaways that you haven't already shared?
I think bringing the emergent leaders together was phenomenal. And so I would love to see that continue. I just think it helps the regionals connect. And what JGR had said, and one of our problems are, and Jeff, you talked about too, creating visibility from a regional perspective. And so that really, really helps. And so the more that we connect with that up and coming generation inside of our industry, I'm all for it. So good job. Keep it up. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Well, Jessica, thank you so much for joining us. And look, if you're listening and you don't know what a regional is, for the love of God, go find out what your local regional is. And there's tons of resources online that can help you out there as well. Even PPAI.org certainly has some information there for your local regional. And go get involved. Figure out how you can go to LDC next year, and or if you're a young person, then get nominated for Rising Stars, or figure out how to go to the ELC, Emerging Leaders Conference. So thanks, Jessica. Appreciate having you. And until next time, guys, we'll be seeing you.